When I was a kid, I was a very dinosaur-obsessed boy for a while. It was like my favorite thing in the world. Basically, the coolest dinosaurs are the underwater ones and the ones that are really hard to pronounce, like the Parasaurolophus. The dinosaurs are really cool, and I was obsessed with them as a kid. It was like my favorite thing. I had toys like on shelves around my room. Nothing's changed. I had like all these dinosaur figures, and of course the reason why, and I think the reason why a lot of kids were obsessed with dinosaurs for a while, is because of this little movie. You may have heard of it. I've got the cane right here. Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park was the movie. It's directed by probably my favorite filmmaker ever, Steven Spielberg. Mr. Spielberg did a really good job on this movie. Jurassic Park was based off a book by Michael Crichton, and this book is great. And a lot of other Michael Crichton books are great. The Andromeda Strain, check that one out. That's a great book. As you can tell, I'm a little bit obsessed with it. It's like my favorite thing ever. See, I got the little cane. There's a look at the bug in there. Dude, I can make a whole theme park out of this bug right here. The reason I'm making a video about Jurassic Park is because last night I watched the latest one it's not called Jurassic Park, it's called Jurassic World Dominion. And I have a question. Is what happened to Jurassic Park? Like, what happened to this franchise that I love so much? What happened to this movie? What happened to the book? What happened? So, when comparing the latest Jurassic World, as the new trilogy has been called, when comparing them, it's kind of like apples and oranges to compare the first movie with the last one. I guess really the best way to understand how far we've fallen kingdom from how far this series has fallen is to kind of compare the first movie with the last one. So really kind of go over what makes the first movie. Oh my god, I'm watching the first movie. It's on my TV. Look, there's the T-Rex. Look, dude, I'm so smart, dude. So I guess I'll kind of break down what makes the first movie so good, or at least so good to me, why it resonates and why it's been so watched for so many years. Like, this movie came out in the early 90s. I wasn't born yet, and people still watch it. Like, young kids still watch the first movie, and it holds up insanely well. And there's a lot of reasons why, but I guess the first and foremost thing that I should talk about is, in my opinion, the most important thing of any story, or at least one of the most important elements of any story, and that is the characters. All the characters in the first Jurassic Park are so great. They're so memorable, specifically that main trio of Dr. Grant, Dr. Sattler, and Dr. Malcolm. The main character of the film really is Alan Grant, and he's also the one that goes through the most growth throughout the movie. At the beginning of the movie, he's this rough, cool Indiana Jones type. He's got the hat, and he's out in the desert digging up dinosaur bones and being all cool in the desert, and he's like, I don't like kids. So even to the point where he gets his he goes to a kid with his velociraptor claw. Can't you tell I like the movie a little bit? I got a cane in the claw. Look at me, man, so cool. He basically he traumatized as a child at the beginning. He's like, you're gonna take the claw and you cut here and here, and he scares the crap out of this kid. He doesn't want kids. Alan Grant does not want kids. As with every great character, there's always a character mirroring that character, or at least doing the exact opposite of what that character is doing. And then you have his girlfriend, Ellie Sattler. Ellie wants kids. Ellie wants to start a family with him, and clearly wants to grow their relationship from where it is, where they're already a very happy couple. She wants to make it even better by introducing kids. She thinks it would be a good idea. He doesn't. And there's your human element to the story that really helps with Alan Grant's journey throughout the rest of the movie. Because for the majority of the movie, he is stuck with kids, and he has to protect these kids, and eventually he comes to love and care for those kids as the film goes on. And I think that's one of the best journeys that a character goes on in any movie, in my opinion, is Alan Grant's connection to the kids. Ellie Sattler is a very capable, strong character in the first movie. She's like going over into the woods. She picks up on that branch, she jumps over it, and it's clearly a stunt double, but it's so good. Of course, I would be remiss if I did not mention the best character in Jurassic Park, our Lord and Savior, Mr. Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum plays Dr. Ian Malcolm, who is into chaos theory. He's this crazy, eccentric, chaotic scientist who's hitting on Ellie, and it's making Grant very uncomfortable, and it's some of the most fun, organic character writing in any movie. One of the biggest changes from the book to the movie is the character of John Hammond, the guy that actually starts the park. John Hammond in the movie is actually a tragic character and not really intended to be a bad guy as he was, I think, in the book. He's more of like a eccentric who really does want to show people an experience they've never seen before. But by the end, he realizes his ambition blinded him to the dangers that he put his own family in. That leads perfectly into the kids. The two child actors in this movie do a great job, and normally child actors in movies are not very good. They struggle, and I'm gonna talk about that when we get to the new movies. The kids naturally play off of each other very well, and they hang out with Dr. Grant through most of the movie. They're forced to be with Dr. Grant for the whole movie because they're attacked by the T-Rex. I guess that's the best transition into the other thing that makes Jurassic Park fantastic and iconic. It is the dinosaurs themselves.
It could only be called the Jurassic Park Extra Value Meal.
Okay, let's eat!
The dinosaurs in Jurassic Park are only on screen for 11 minutes, but their presence is felt throughout the entire movie. In the opening scene, you're not even shown a dinosaur in the opening scene. You're not shown the velociraptors, but you know the velociraptors are coming. They are hinted at. You see the eye of, I think, one of the velociraptors at the beginning of the movie. It's the sound design and the way that they frame the shots of the close-up of the, Muldoon's eyes where he's all, like, freaked out, and the velociraptor. It's fantastic. This scene is so well-paced and so suspenseful, and that is something that I think I could say throughout all the dinosaur scenes in the movie. Well-paced and suspenseful. There are only about, I think, 5 dinosaurs in the movie that you really see, at least with full animatronics and full CG, and only one of them is portrayed as a kind dinosaur, and that's the brachiosaur. The brachiosaurs are kind, and they're gentle, and they're played for sort of a comedic, wondrous scene, whereas the T-Rex, velociraptors, the Dilophosaur, all those other dinosaurs are portrayed as very, very dangerous dinosaurs, which I guess leads me to talking about the best scene in the whole damn movie, when the T-Rex shows up. When the T-Rex appears in this movie for the first time, it is truly one of the most groundbreaking, and I mean this 100%, it is truly one of the most groundbreaking sequences ever put on film, and it's one of the best directed. Spielberg's direction is genius here. The entire scene plays out with no music, it's entirely suspenseful, and it keeps ramping up. At first, the T-Rex is kind of like an animal. It's testing the cars. It kind of nudges it with its head. It kind of sniffs it. It plays around, and then it just goes full force into knocking the car over, and the kids are inside, and they're screaming. It's phenomenal. It's one of the best scenes in any movie ever, and it just ends with the T-Rex roaring, and that's it. It's a perfect scene, and the series has never quite gotten to that level since, at least with the T-Rex. Then you have the velociraptors, which became a very big part in the sequels. Velociraptors are kind of the main antagonists of the movie. There are 3 T-Rex scenes, but there are many velociraptor scenes where they're stalking the kids and then eventually the whole group once they reunite later in the movie. The velociraptors are handled as these sort of deadly, almost slasher villain characters, where they walk into a room and it's completely quiet, and you know that there will be no mercy for anybody in the room when they're around. They're testing the environment. They're not like the T-Rex, where it has this one weakness that the characters can kind of exploit. The raptors don't have one. The raptors are deadly, they are efficient, they are scary, and you cannot stop them. You cannot stop them. Jurassic World 1, 2, and 3. The last element that really makes Jurassic Park, I think, such a classic is the music by John Williams. John Williams is this guy. You may or may not know him, but he's kind of the single greatest film composer in history ever. Everything he touches is gold, and Jurassic Park is one of the best scores he's ever done. It's exceptional, top 5 easily. And when the music is played in the movie, it's played appropriately. When we first see the dinosaurs, and this is an element that I'm going to really point out in the sequels that we get to later, is that the dinosaurs, while for most of the movie are antagonistic, they're also beautiful creatures that have been brought out of time. They're brought into a world they don't understand, and it's amazing to see that they're actually alive again. And Spielberg, through his special effects and his techniques, made them seem alive. And John Williams' music added to that exponentially. It improves the movie in every single way. You have this sense of beauty when the Brachiosaurus shows up for the first time. You have this sense of fear with the velociraptors chasing the characters around. And then, of course, you have this excitement with that theme, Journey to the Island, when they're flying the helicopter to the island. You're excited to see what's going to be there, and you can't wait to see it. Jurassic Park, dude, is amazing. It's like one of the best movies ever. It's a classic in every regard. The sequels to Jurassic Park, however, are a little different. You have the first trilogy, which is Jurassic Park 1, The Lost World, and the Jurassic Park 3. And I'm gonna be real with you. I kind of love these movies. Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World, is starring Jeff Goldblum, and that's every reason I have to say why I like that one in one go. There you go, next movie. Jurassic Park 3 is a little stupid. It's kind of dumb. It has the Spinosaurus, which I thought as a kid was really cool, but now that I'm older, I realize that the T-Rex is way better. There's no way it would have lost in that fight in the movie, and it got killed and taken out of the entire movie. Just stupid decision. I don't know what they were thinking there. I guess the best area that Jurassic Park 3 has going for it is the velociraptors. They are fantastic in this movie. They're like kind of upgraded from the first movie. They look really cool. They have cool sounds. They actually use the sounds of the velociraptors as a weapon in this movie that I thought was really cool. Again, they actually designed something in the plot to defeat the raptors. Like a weapon, like a thing to communicate with them. And that makes a little more sense than things that are going to happen later. But I'm remembering now, how could I forget? Jurassic Park 3 has this great scene where Alan Grant goes to sleep on a plane, and he wakes up, and he looks over, and there's a raptor, and it's just, Alan. I love Jurassic Park 3. So Jurassic Park 2 and 3 are very, very not good movies. They have a lot of problems. They're not super good. They're definitely not on the level of the first movie, but they're passable. You know, it makes sense they would come out like right on the heels of the first movie. They came out pretty quickly afterward, and they were insanely successful. The third one not being as successful, if I remember right, I don't think it was as big of a hit as Jurassic Park, The Lost World, but ultimately that was the end of the series for many, many years. And then they announced that Jurassic World was coming out, when there was this, this new thing at the time that we never heard of before called the Legacy sequel. Legacies. Legacy sequels inherently have a very difficult job. They have to capture the magic of the first movie and the brilliance of it, while also paying tribute to it and justifying their own existence as a movie. Because if a movie's franchise is really good, it's able to wrap up its story well. It's able to finish what it set out to do, and the fact that the Legacy sequel even exists kind of undermines what they set up to do in that original series, or the original movie if it's just a sequel to one movie. This, however, can work. The idea of a Legacy sequel can work. It has worked in the amazing Blade Runner 2049, which is a movie that I would kiss on the mouth while looking directly in its eyes. Blade Runner 2049 is amazing. It justifies the reason it exists and expands the first movie without nullifying all the work the first movie did and answering the mysterious questions the first movie had. And this is where Jurassic World falls apart in its trilogy of movies. None of them work, and they all kind of fall apart as they go along. So let's look at the areas that we talked about in the first movie that made it work. You have your characters. The characters of Jurassic World are pretty bland. They don't stand out to me, and they don't really go through much of a journey that's interesting. Alan Grant is replaced by Chris Pratt, or Owen Grady, I should say. Owen Grady is your typical Chris Pratt type character, where he's cool and he's awesome, and he goes out and he's on a motorcycle, and the majority of Chris Pratt's paycheck in these movies is for him to stand there and go, "It's really stupid," but I'm going to talk about that later. Talk about that later. One thing at a time, Mason. One thing at a time. Bryce Dallas Howard plays a character whose name I genuinely cannot remember, and I kind of feel bad about that. And to the movie's credit, she does kind of go through an arc, but it's very predictable and kind of been done a million times, where she's this snobby executive who kind of runs the park and had a previous relationship with Owen, because of course she did, and because, yeah, of course. And she goes through this whole arc of like, the dinosaurs are assets and they're not real creatures, and I don't care about them, and I'm this uptight person, and I'm gonna go save my nephews. And she, rips her dress up at one point because that means she's strong. The characters we are kind of following for most of Jurassic World are Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard, and neither of them are as interesting or as compelling as Alan Grant or Ellie Sattler or Ian Malcolm. None of them really engage me like the original characters. The character changes that they go through really are very minor and predictable and are so obviously going to happen, and none of them I care about enough to do that. Basically they gave Alan Grant's whole I don't care about kids thing to Bryce Dallas Howard, but it doesn't really pay off like it did in the other ones. Like, she ultimately protects the kids, but mainly because it's kind of required of her because they're her nephews. And by the way, on that topic, these two kid actors are not very good, unlike the ones in the first Jurassic Park. They're just not good. And that's a problem with all Jurassic World movies, because in the sequels they introduced this one girl who I don't like very much, but we'll get to her in a little bit. So Jurassic World has ideas that are interesting on paper in that they did get through to make the part successfully, and the dinosaurs are kind of being boring now because it's this exposed thing, kind of like how when we see a new smartphone, it's not really a big deal anymore because we've seen them a million times. Seeing dinosaurs is now a boring thing, and that's why they made Jurassic World, and why they're trying to make this new dinosaur, which is very anticlimactic, because the idea of a hybrid dinosaur is pretty cool, but all it is just a big velociraptor and T-Rex kind of thing, and it doesn't do anything cool. And that, I guess, is the best way to kind of lead into the dinosaur segment of this, because the dinosaurs in Jurassic World are not handled well at all in any of them, the sequels or the first one. I remember I said in the first movie, the dinosaurs are on screen for like, 10, 11 minutes. Because they weren't on screen so much, when they were, it was a big deal. Jurassic World is, dude, look at all these dinosaurs, and look at all of our effects that weirdly don't look as good as the first movie, and I've never quite understood that. Shouldn't they look better? I mean, the technology's better. Why do they not look as good? I think it's just a time thing. I don't know. They don't look as good as the first movie is my point. There are so many of dinosaurs on screen. It is very cool for a fan of dinosaurs like myself to see so many dinosaurs on screen and shown, but the moments don't feel as big because they're not built up. You're just seeing them all the time. And it's overdone, and the CG doesn't hold up as good, and it's just not as fun. The best part of the movie, in the first movie, and everybody loves it, is the part when the T-Rex shows up at the end to fight the whatever dinosaur, because when the T-Rex shows up, it's actually built up through the whole movie. It does call back to the first movie that the T-Rex is shown built up. They talk about the T-Rex in the first movie for like most of it. They're like, oh, you caught a T-Rex? Yes, we have a T-Rex, yes. It runs 30 miles per hour. It's this huge thing. You're like, whoa, the T-Rex is showing up. So when it does, it meets the expectations because you've been built up the whole movie. In this one, they do similar. I'll give them credit. Similarly, they do that in Jurassic World. They show the T-Rex kind of briefly at the opening where it's eating something and like chasing something down, and then at the end of the movie, Bryce Dallas Howard's like, full badass mode, and she grabs her flare and she's like doing the Ian Malcolm thing, and she runs and leads it out, and it goes and fights and kills the bad one, the bad dinosaur. But it's helped by the velociraptors, which the velociraptors are completely ruined in the Jurassic World movies. They are not these threatening, scary things like they were in the first movies. Even the first movies, the first three, they were intimidating threats in the first three. In this one, they're like wolves or something, and then Chris Pratt can stop them from ripping him apart by doing this. It makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. It makes me angry. And it works in every movie for some reason. Like, I just wanted one scene where he tries it and it just rips his arm off. It would have been hilarious, and they just didn't do it. I don't get it. The main reason I made this video is because I watched Jurassic World Dominion last night, and I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt, because the first Jurassic World, despite how much I've kind of crapped on it, I don't hate it as much as I do the sequels to it. I think the first one is whatever. I wouldn't watch it again, but it had potential, but overall I just whatever. Dominion, I kind of hated this movie at certain parts, but I also thought some parts were like entertaining, but it's entirely because of the nostalgia for the first one. They have Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum in this movie, and that's a big deal for me as a fan of the first movie. It's a big deal for me to see them on screen together and see them interact again. And it's just because it's them, though. Like, it only works because it's those actors, because the story is really stupid, and I don't get it, and I was kind of lost. It's about these bugs, like these locusts, and the locusts eat crops, but they don't eat Biosyn crops, like the company that made them. Oh, and by the way, Dodgson is the bad guy, but not the original actor Dodgson, because the original actor got in some trouble, so they had to tell you a million times that it was Dodgson. I don't know, it doesn't make a lot of sense. The comedy in Jurassic World Dominion was really weird and teetered on Marvel humor, Marvel comedy, which It was really bad. And it wasn't funny. And a lot of that comedy came from this younger actress in the movie, who, again, I don't want to crap on actors too much because they are working with what they're given in a script. But this young girl, I just didn't care for her. And she's this clone, but she's also kind of like not. Because she's born from her mom. Her mom is her clone, and genetically she's the same as the mom. And it just doesn't make any. Because Mr. DNA, I need Mr. DNA to explain to me how that works, because I don't quite get it. And not Dr. Wu from the first movie, who's on screen for like 2 minutes and they made him this major part of the other movies, which, I mean, that's good for the actor, but like they really were stretching with that one. I don't get it. I don't understand. I guess that's the biggest thing about these movies, is I just don't get it. I don't get why they were necessary to exist, and I don't get why they try to justify their existence in every movie rather than just saying, hey, we're just going to show you cool dinosaur stuff. Because that's one of the last things I want to talk about. The dinosaur stuff is very entertaining. It's very cool. But it's not like the first Jurassic Park. The first Jurassic Park, at its core, is a movie about scientists on an island trying to survive genetically created dinosaurs that are way stronger and way smarter and will rip them apart if they are not careful. You know, there's this scene in the first movie where these kids are hiding from velociraptors in the kitchen, and it's really intense. Like, they're trying not to make too much noise, and they're knocking things over, and then they actually outsmart the raptor at one point because it runs to grab the kid, and it sees its reflection, and it slams into the wall, and it's like falls, and then the one kid runs and jukes out of the way, like jukes it in this fridge and closes the door. It's fantastic. That scene was intense, and I'm on the edge of my seat the entire time about that scene. In Jurassic World Dominion, there's a scene where Chris Pratt is on a motorcycle, and he gets in this plane that's about to take off, this cargo plane, and he gets in and he lets go of the motorcycle, and it slams into this thing that's chasing after this dinosaur, and am I watching Mission Impossible, or am I watching Jurassic Park? It's completely changed, and it doesn't feel like the first movie. And I guess that's kind of the biggest thing I'm saying throughout this really long video, is it doesn't feel like Jurassic Park. The tone is completely different, and it doesn't try to be like the first movie anymore. By the third one, it doesn't try. Jurassic World had some moments where it tried to be, but this one doesn't. And that sentiment is really carried over into the last thing, is the music. The music in Jurassic World sucks. Like, and I love Michael Giacchino, who did the music. I love his work. I'm a huge fan, but it does not work in this movie. He doesn't even try to use John Williams themes, but like a few times, because they don't fit with the tone, and I think he knows that. It doesn't work. You could not play John Williams' theme for Jurassic Park in this movie because it just wouldn't work. The moment does not live up to the music that's being played, and that's kind of sad. I guess to end this video and this kind of discussion about Jurassic Park is to kind of end it with how Jurassic Park personally affected me. When I was a kid, one of the first DVDs that we bought when we got a DVD player was the Jurassic Park Collector's Edition DVD. I actually still have this DVD. This DVD had bonus features on it, and there was a documentary on the making of Jurassic Park. And when I was a kid, trying to figure out life and what I wanted to do for a living, and I didn't consider movies to be an option. To me, Star Wars and King Kong and all these movies that I loved as a kid that existed, they simply existed as works of art. I didn't think of the person behind it. I didn't think of it as a job, that it was somebody's job to create this work of art. And then I'm watching this documentary of Jurassic Park, and I'm seeing people create the sounds, and I'm seeing John Williams work on the music, and I'm seeing these people create the special effects, and then I see Steven Spielberg as the director, and my dad told me he was the guy that made the movie. He's the director. He's the guy in charge. And I went, oh my God, this is someone's job to make something like this. This is amazing. And that movie had a profound effect on me. Both that documentary and, of course, the movie it's about profoundly affected me, and it made me want to go into storytelling and creating as a job, as a career. Whether it be writing books or creating movies or short films, Jurassic Park had a major hand in who I want to be. So it's kind of sad to see this movie that I love so much kind of turned into this product. And it's kind of interesting how it's perfectly foreshadowed in the first movie. There's a scene where Ian Malcolm is sitting around this dinner table with all the cast, and he says, you had this amazing thing, and before you knew what you had, you wanted to sell it, and you wanted to sell it, and you wanted to sell it. And that perfectly describes the Jurassic Park sequels. Anyway, that's my video on the Jurassic Park sequels and Jurassic World and all that. Subscribe if you want to see more videos of me rambling about stupid topics like this that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Thank you so much for sticking around the entire time. Thank you.